Right. In the second quarter of 2024, Nigeria's average daily production of crude oil fell to 1.4 million barrels per day from 1.5 million barrels per day. The Nigeria Bureau of Statistics has released data on the quarterly gross domestic product for 2024, which is where this information definitely originates from. According to the data, the average output of crude oil in the first quarter of 2024 was 1.57 million barrels per day. However, in the second quarter, this amount decreased by 0.16 million barrels per day. Itoro Adediran, Senior Manager, KPMG, Energy and Natural Resources, joins me for this. Thank you, Itoro, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Right, let me begin with what you make of the reduction in the daily oil produced, in daily oil production in Nigeria.
Okay, so it's really interesting to see that crude oil production is still reducing. Why I'm saying this is because we actually do expect to see crude oil production go up, given the level of investment and everything that the government is doing in terms of security to try and ramp up production of crude oil. So it's just really interesting to see that even with all of that, it's still dropping. And even this 1.4 figure that we are quoting, remember that it also includes condensate. So if you want to stay with our actual crude oil production, we're looking at 1.2, 1.3 thereabouts, which is not even where Nigeria should be, because we have the capacity to do up to 2.2 million barrels per day. And so it's really just sad to see that we are yet to get to where we need to get to be able to maximize our revenue from crude oil production sales. And we're just really sad, hoping that we can really do all that we need to do to ensure that Nigeria gets back on track to be able to maximize our sales from crude oil production.
Will you help us by highlighting some of those things? You talked about some of the measures that are already being taken by the federal government, which do not seem to translate into, real results and all of those. So what are your suggestions on what can be done better? Or could it be we're just saying lip service being paid to these things and there really isn't political will to drive some of those changes we're expecting in the sector?
Okay, and I think let's look at where we are coming from last year. As at this time last year, Nigeria was doing very close to 1 million barrels per day, if you check the same period for 2023. So that shows that something is being done and something is being done right, because there's an actual uptick from where we were last year till now. And again, like I mentioned, there have been several investments. The president signed some orders, PIA is being operationalized, NNPC became NNPCL. There are a couple of things that have been done, and we are beginning to see the benefits, because like I said earlier, we were initially at barely 1 million barrels as at this time last year, and now we are talking about 1.2, 1.3. Also, you would note that the NUPRC has also done enough or done some things with stakeholders, such as trying to improve measurements at measurement points and trying to ensure that transparency goes through the entire process as well. So if you put all of this in context, you will see that action is being taken. We are not able to probably reap the entire benefits of the action being taken as at now, but there are steps in the right direction, and we are already seeing that, because if I take 2023 figures, like I said earlier, and compare vis-a-vis where we are in 2024, you will see that there is an improvement. Now, that's where we need to be. That's the trajectory we need to be going on. What do we need to do? We need to keep encouraging the sector. We need to keep ensuring that the players get their maximum benefits. We need to ensure that the place is secure enough for people to carry out their daily operations. So in terms of boosting security, which we're already seeing. And then you also note that last month, NNPC also came out to say that they are waging war against anything that is going to reduce the country's capacity, the country's crude oil capacity. So there are steps, there are adequate steps. We just need to ensure that we are on that trajectory. We probably need to ensure that we give the sector all that it needs, give the sector all that it requires. We're already doing that in terms of incentives. There's also the PIA. So we are also the government's also trying to ensure that there is that drive and that boost to the sector. We just need to ensure that we are on that trajectory to ensure that we get the maximum benefits. Like we've mentioned, there's a couple of things that have already been done, and NUPRC is partnering with some of the stakeholders to ensure that there is measurement transparency so that there's no crude oil loss, or you can be able to adequately track crude oil loss in transit. Then there's also the fact that the PIA is being operationalized. And then recently, there were some circulars that were signed which also aims at boosting the incentives in the industry. So we just need to ensure that that continues to happen so that we can reap that maximum benefit. Again, maybe another thing we can do is to ensure that. Okay,
go ahead, very quickly. Go ahead.
Okay, we can also ensure that maybe it's time to put a face or names to all the issues that we're having in terms of crude oil theft. So if there are people or vessels or anything that the government needs to do, maybe it's time to start to criminalize the crude oil theft so that by the time people see that as an example, it will deter other people from going that same way.
Well, I see how optimistic you are about the sector, and I'm looking forward to Q3 figures to see if it's going up, because if it doesn't go up, I'm coming for you. All right, so how significant is the oil sector's 5.7% contribution to Nigeria's GDP in the second quarter of 2024? I mean, given its overall impact on the economy, if you can take that in about 30 seconds or less.
I don't, in my view, I don't think 5.7 is even enough, because again, like we all shout and we all know, Nigeria is highly dependent on the sale of crude oil and dependent on the oil and gas sector as a whole. And so if you come from that state, 5.7 still seems a bit low. But again, if you come from where we are coming from last year, you will see that this is a significant growth and this is a welcome improvement, basically. And so even though it is still small, there are steps being taken, because I mean, look at the services sector contributing significantly. The oil and gas sector can do more. We have a production capacity of about 2.2 million barrels per day. We can do this. We are just plagued with several problems that the industry is currently facing. And so if we can take away that, we will see that we are able to contribute more. There are also incentives, there are also marginal fields that have recently won, the 2020 marginal field that were won. If people start to produce on those fields, there's also a potential one for 2024. If we can get those fields out, people start to work on those fields, we will see more contribution from this sector. Again, even without the additional fields, we have the capacity to do 2.2 million barrels per day. We're just doing nearly 1.4, at least at the highest that we've seen in recent times. So there's opportunity for growth, and the sector can contribute more to the general GDP.
All right, thank you so much, Itoro Adediran, Senior Manager, KPMG Energy and Natural Resources, for your thoughts. Maybe you also need to add, we need some transparency around the operations of NNPC. We'll talk about that some other time. Thank you for your time on the show today.
Thank you for having me.